the name of your research lab and what research you do.
Yeah, so I am within computer science. I specialize in human-computer interaction, which is where humans and computers come together. And the specific project that you're interviewing me about is our project about gender-inclusive software, which I'm the co-director of, and the other co-director is Professor Sarma, Anita Sarma, here in computer science as well. And that actually has been going on since 2002. So it's a long-standing project, and we continue to do all kinds of exciting stuff, which I'll tell you about shortly. Stands for Gender Inclusiveness Magnifier. That's why we call it GenderMag. For example, suppose you work for a software company like Google or Microsoft or Adobe or one of those places. So the business of these companies is to produce software that people are either going to buy or just use for free. But they're going to, that's what you do, is you create software. So those of you who work for this company, your mission is to make the software good. So people like that, whether they're software developers or user experience researchers or software managers, those people get together with a software product that they want to analyze, and they use our method to figure out whether it has gender biases built into it. The answer is almost always yes. Look who's here. My colleague Anita Sarma. She and I are the co-directors of this GenderMag project.
Right, and I'm an associate professor here at Oregon State University, and we work very closely with this whole project with our students and the research.
When people kind of feel like they're stuck on a problem, they usually feel like they need more information. And there's more than one style of going about gathering that information. So let's consider a spreadsheet. Suppose you're working on a spreadsheet and it's complicated. Lots and lots of formulas. Maybe it's a budget for some organization that you're part of, or maybe it's a set of grades that you have to teach for a class that you're helping to be a TA for. Anyway, so you've got this spreadsheet and it's not working and you're trying to figure out why. So one style of information processing is called the selective style. And that style is who most spreadsheet systems are written for. So in that style, you want just a teeny little bit of information at once. And then you want to act upon it immediately to see how it works out. And then you want another teeny bit of information, and then you act upon that. And then another teeny bit of information, and then you say, okay, bad idea, backtrack, backtrack. So this is the style that most spreadsheets are written for. So for example, in a spreadsheet, supposing you're looking at these mysterious cells, and so you put your cursor on one of the cells, and you get to see the formula up there in the formula bar, and you say, I don't know if the math is quite right in that. I think I'm going to try making this change and see what happens. And so you make a change, so you've gathered one little bit of information, just that one formula, you're acting upon it, you make a change, you see what happened, you see a lot of values change, and maybe the next thing you want to do is consider one of the cells that's related to that one, maybe one of the ones that contributes to it. And if you put your cursor in a certain place, a lot of spreadsheets will highlight those with colors. There are ways to get arrows to come up to show you how these, which one you might want to look at next. So it's all set up just for you. On the other hand, another popular style is called the comprehensive style. And people who favor that style like to gather a lot of information at once to get their heads around a problem before they start going forward. So for them, it looks more like gather, 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 and then a batch of doing things. The first style, it was more like gather, do, gather, do, gather, do. Anyway, so it's really hard for comprehensive problem solvers, the ones who like to gather a lot together, to be able to get what they need out of spreadsheet systems. So for that style, what you'd want to do in this situation is see all the formulas together. So that's just really hard to do in spreadsheet systems. To do that, you have to put your cursor on some cell. There's the formula up on top. Memorize that. Now put your cursor on some other cell. There's the formula up on top. You got to memorize that too. Now put your cursor on some other cell. There's the third formula. Memorize that 3. Okay, keep going. So this is horrible, right? I mean, this is absolutely horrible. Now, there is another view in some spreadsheets, if you can find it, called the formulas view. You don't get to see any of the values anymore, but you can switch to only seeing the formulas. So let's say that our comprehensive problem solver finds that and gets over there. But the trouble is the column widths are all wrong. They're all set up for if it's just values showing. And furthermore, getting the columns right is a lot of work because some formulas are long and some are short. But you drag column widths around forever and ever and get it in decent enough shape so that finally, after all that messing around, you can finally start problem solving in the way that's best for you. So you can see this huge cognitive tax you've had to pay just because the software isn't set up for the kind of processing, information processing that works best for you. So that's a bias against that cognitive style that also happens to disproportionately be a bias against women because women disproportionately favor that style over the other one.
And which style?
Women disproportionately favor the comprehensive style, the one that turned out to be so hard in this spreadsheet. Now, one question that you may ask is, well, can't they just do it the other way? And the answer is yes, they can change, but now they're operating in a way that's not their optimal way of thinking. So if they try to change themselves into the other style, then they're constantly having to adjust their thinking, which is another kind of a cognitive tax.
Mm-hmm. What is a negative outcome that comes from this? Is this making women have a hard time doing their job, or?
Yes, it's basically draining their mental cycles available for solving the problem they came there to solve. So it's a huge productivity hit.
So I would say like one more thing is like I almost use this words like, you know, I can walk from A to B, that's just one style, but I can also crawl from A to B if you make me do that, right? But what's happening is we are hobbling one set of users who have this particular, say, comprehensive information style. They have to crawl because they get slower now, because that's the way some other people go faster, right? So it makes them slower because that's not their style. I feel they might also make more mistakes because the software and the style is not suited to how people work. So you're throwing wrenches into their style,
Mm-hmm.
and just makes it harder for them and more prone to making mistakes.
So the creators of software should adapt. Well, there are a whole lot of reasons, but here's just one. Money. Would they rather have software that the whole market likes, or would they rather have software that only one gender in the market likes? I mean, they're cutting their potential market by a huge fraction. So that would be one reason. Another reason is the health of their businesses and the health of society, because you want, I mean, businesses know they really want cognitive diversity on their teams.
Yeah.
They want people who think different ways. But if the software demands that everybody think the same way, which, by the way, the software does, then it's actually interfering with that cognitive diversity that they're trying so hard to get.
And I'll add a third reason, and this is from HCI, called curb cuts. So, you know, those intersections that are the curb cuts, it came out because designers wanted to help people who are in wheelchairs go to intersections better. But because of the curb cuts, it also helps people who have strollers, suitcases that they carry, rollerboards. So it makes the software or the tool actually more useful and easier for a whole set of population. So addressing one underserved population actually makes the software or the tool better for a larger set of population that the designers of the software might not even have thought about.
One of our recent collaborators, longtime collaborators actually, has been Microsoft, and they used it recently on one of their products. And in that product, they built it using their regular methods without GenderMag involved. And they had it out there for a number of years. And then they decided to try to use GenderMag on it. So they did, and they found some things that looked like gender biases that they decided they wanted to fix, and they fixed them. And then they did what's called an A versus B comparison. So they compared the original version against the new version. And so in the original version, we gave the participants a whole bunch of different tasks, and the women failed the tasks we gave them over twice as often as the men in the original version.
Women, that's men.
Yeah, this is women, this is men. Those, by the way, are the only two genders we had in that study. And then in the new version, those participants, everybody failed less, and the gender gap completely disappeared.
Completely.
Completely. Even.
Yeah.
That's a huge success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to draw it in the air.
When was this done? This year or?
Yes, that paper just came out in May in a research conference on human-computer interaction, and people can get to it from the GenderMag site, gendermag.org. Guess what? OSU is using GenderMag right now to try to figure out how to make the university IT, like the websites and the forms and the various things that you have to use, how to figure out how to make those better. So if you work for some company, company or some bit of OSU, you can start using GenderMag too to make sure that the website you're building, the forms that you're asking people to fill out, the software that you're helping to create or design in some way, you can use it too.
And if you know programming, we have an open source tool,
Yes.
which is the GenderMag Recorder's Assistant, which helps with the process, the recording. It's open source, and we would love to have contributions going towards the tool. So you can be building and shaping the tool that is going to help with removing gender biases in software.
Yeah, you can be changing the world
Yes.
right now.